Welcome everyone. What an exciting time, especially for me. I'm Mindy Scheier. I'm the founder of Runway of Dreams and Gamut Management, and this is our first event with our new parent company, Fedcap Group, and we are just so honored and excited to be on this journey with the whole team. So a little bit about me. First of all, thank you, Heather. You were spectacular, and we're so grateful to have you here. My journey started as I'm a fashion designer by trade, and I'm also the mom of a now almost 21-year-old son, Oliver, who was born with a rare form of muscular dystrophy. And when Oliver was young, he wore sweatpants every day to school until one day he came home and said, well, I want to wear jeans like everybody else gets to wear, but he couldn't because he really struggled with buttons and zippers, putting pants over his leg braces, etc. So I decided in 2013 to take my background and have a teeny tiny little small goal of changing the fashion industry to be inclusive of people with disabilities. And Runway of Dreams was born. And you're going to hear so much today about the amazing work that we are really trying to implement in not only the fashion industry, but beauty and lifestyle, etc., technology. And because of the work that we did with Runway of Dreams, and we're going to hear a little bit more certainly about the work that we did with our pioneering brand Tommy Hilfiger in 2016, we made fashion history. Suddenly, so many other brands started reaching out to Runway of Dreams and saying, well, how do we get involved? How do we have adaptive products or universal products or people with disabilities in our ad campaigns, etc.? So in 2019, I started a second company, Gamut Management, which is the first consulting, talent, and accreditation company that exclusively works in the adaptive space with brands to help them learn and understand and design with, not for, people with disabilities. And that's exactly what our panel today is going to be about, and that's the power of inclusion of people with disabilities into the design process, learning, growing, developing with them. And I'm so honored to be on stage with the extraordinary panelists that we have here today that have really been on the journey with us over the past decade, and I always believe in the panelists introducing themselves. So Dawn Robertson, who is also one of our board members, and has personally been an extraordinary mentor to me, and it's an honor to be with you. So Dawn?
Thank you, Mindy. Yes, I've been on the board for quite a few years, and almost from the beginning, fantastic. I'm a retailer. I ran Old Navy, I started Macy's.com, I ran a division of Saks, etc., etc., etc. So as a retailer who understands what this consumer is about, I was excited to join Mindy as part of Runway of Dreams to help support her from a retail point of view. So very exciting. We look forward to the panel. I'll turn over.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing?
Good.
We can do a little better than that. How y'all doing? We got some good energy in the room. Well, I'm excited to be here. I want to say just thank you, Mindy, for the invite, and Heather. Amazing kickoff. Like, there's so many nuggets you dropped. I was over there typing little notes in my phone, so I could be like, I got to steal and recycle this a little bit later. I'm Ron Brown. I work for Target. About 60 days ago, I had a role change where I took over leading stores, where I oversee about 75 stores out of Florida. And before that, I oversaw everything that we did in community for the enterprise for about 3.5 years. And a big part of that, and why I know that I believe Mindy asked me to come today, is because we did a lot that came to listening and then how we were better together, because we did with the community and not to the community. And we asked that we look at how we implement that through every single part of our business, and a big part of that came to design as well. So really excited for the discussion and spend time with y'all.
Hi everyone, I'm Christy Tostevin, and I work for Victoria's Secret & Co. I've been with the business more than 20 years. I'm responsible for communications, community relations, and global inclusion and belonging. I think we've been on the journey for a little less time than Target, but we've been such great partners with Runway of Dreams and Gamut in bringing our adaptive product to life. You can see it in the back of the room there. I'm really excited to have this conversation to share what we know and we have done, but mostly to listen and learn. So thank you, Mindy.
Thank you. Christy, I'd actually like to stay with you, and you really teed that up beautifully with the listening and learning, because that's a lot of how we started with Victoria's Secret. I would love for you to share a little bit about the experience and the journey that the team, both at Victoria's Secret and Pink, went on to first learn about the consumer with a disability, and why was that so important?
Yeah, I think, it's easy for people from the outside to look in and say, well, you're the expert in bras, just make an adaptive bra. No panties, make an adaptive panty, but we all know that's not true, because yes, we may know quality, we may know fit, but we don't know the adaptive space, and we have no authority there. And so we have to start with a whole lot of listening to understand, to hear from the community, to understand, listen, bras are not easy to get on for anybody, let's be honest, right?
Or get off.
Or
actually.
get off,
Yeah.
especially a sport bra. Anyway, so we had to understand what are the challenges, and there are many, right? A lot of different things come to bear when you're getting on and off a bra, and we had to understand for different people with different abilities, what did that look like? We didn't have, we could have probably gone out and found people to listen to, but it would have taken us a long time. Instead, we said, Mindy, can you find some women to come and talk to us and share their experience? And she did, 200 women over the course of our working together, coming together to give us initial insight. We just listened. Mindy's team ran the sessions. And then we went out and said, okay, based on what we heard, here's a bra, here's panties, please go wear them. Tell us what you think. We brought them back after the wear test. What needs to be changed? What needs to be different? That took a while to get to something we all agreed was worth it for the consumer. And also earned the Gamut seal of approval, which was incredible. But, yes, we might be the expert in bras, but we are not the expert in the space. And so we had to build some credibility, and we were happy to do it with Mindy and team. And it's been an ongoing partnership this past year. Just at the start of the school year, we launched our first adaptive backpack and went through the same process, listening, learning to understand. But I think what Heather said, the products we make really are for everyone. They are so unbelievably valuable and useful. I, got my oldest daughter the backpack, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier to get my things in and out of it. Yes, we all benefit. So it's been an incredible journey, Mindy. We couldn't be happier to be your partner.
And right back at you. But one thing that I do want to just pull out quickly, Christy, was you mentioned about the Gamut seal of approval. So in 2022, we heard from the community that constantly would be emailing us or messaging us saying, well, how do we know how to trust the brand? How do we know that they didn't just put magnets in their product and say it's adaptive? And from the brand perspective, how could they best communicate out to the consumers that they did this authentically, that they included people with disabilities at every step of the value chain? So how do we do that in our mainstream world? Certification marks. So we developed the first certification mark called the Gamut seal of approval. And one thing that I just, Christy, is that Victoria's Secret actually said that they didn't want to launch unless they launched with the certification mark. Why was that important?
Yeah, again, we have no authority. Who would trust us? You shouldn't trust us. If we came out and said, look, we created this great bra, for the disability community, that doesn't mean anything, nor should it. We have to earn trust. And so to have Mindy's in the Gamut seal of approval to say, we do know this space, and we are saying this is a product that was developed in the right way, and it is going to be something that will work for you. That meant everything to us. And so we could not be happier, and went through the process again with the backpack. And so, being able to lean again on the credibility and trust that you have, you lending that to us, it's the stamp that says you can trust this.
Thank you. Ron, I particularly, not only because we fell in love in a panel a while ago, but also because you bring such an important perspective about how important it is to bring in the community at so many different levels, from the product to the experience in the store to the advertising in the store. If anybody's been in Targets over the last couple of years, there's many images of people with disabilities and all different types of people, as well as the shopping cart even that was developed for people in wheelchairs to be able to shop more easily. Can you share with us a little bit about why that was so important for Target?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mindy. For as long as I can remember, Target has had a focus on how do we design for all, right? How do we think about this through an inclusive point of view? So whether you're browsing online or shopping in our stores or wearing our products, we look at this as not a compliance box, not just saying like, how do we do this just so we can check the box, but this is a part of who we are, right? And so there's a quote that, you'll hear me say many times. It says, don't do for us without us. And so very intentionally, Target continued to build multiple ways of listening streams, right? So whether that was through how we do just listening sessions, whether we sending out surveys, and I'll just be honest with you, for me, I love to be like on the ground in the stores and just talking to our guests that I see coming in. Those who are using the shopping carts, those who are looking at the clothes. And I'm asking, hey, any feedback? What can I be sending up? What can we do better? What do you all have that I can take away and probably share with others? Because the one thing that we continue to go by is that this space will continue to evolve, right? There's never a, hey, we've arrived and it's all done. And so that's an important part about really having a real relationship with the community, and also being able to talk through like, how do we continue to make not only our products accessible, but make sure that everybody can feel seen, right? So back to like what you shared there, Mindy, whether it's our signing, whether it's our ads, even if you look at what we have on our commercials, right? Is continue to think about how do we show up and think about all and be as inclusive as possible. We're really doing it because it's a part of who we are and not just something we're trying to get done.
Thank you for that. And one thing I'd really love to underscore is that there isn't a destination in terms of, whoop, we made it, right. We figured it all out, we got it all 100%. And I think Target specifically has been excellent at really listening to the feedback. Do you have examples of?
Oh yeah.
I just threw a lob at you. I'm sorry, that's off script.
You good.
But
go for it.
I know you well enough to know that you do have examples of that.
I mean, that's the best part about having an authentic and organic conversation. You can throw all kind of lobs, right? And it can be really real. So one of the examples you already kind of shared was around the shopping carts and what happened there. But I can even give you all a personal example. My goddaughter was born with cerebral palsy, and she has a feeding tube, but also we need to be able to have easier ways to be able to get her in and out of her clothing, right? And so Cat and Jack, if you look at that brand over the past 5 years, continue to be able to change whether it's making it to where it's Velcro on the shoulders or doing different things near the legs for the pants. So then that way it's easier to get in and out of for the kids with the Cat and Jack brand. And even with this is one brand that from year to year, man, you will continue to see us evolve, so then that way we can make sure we're showing up for the kids to not only feel more comfortable, but also be more confident when they're wearing their clothes or whether they're going to school, and know that like, hey, this is made for you, and you can have a swag kind of like Heather, the way you can just be smiling and comfortable as you're showing up day in and day out in your fashion.
Absolutely, and also from our perspective, the Runway of Dreams side, we've also seen Target really listen to the feedback that they wanted adults also, not just Cat and Jack, and from
sure.
being on our runways for the past 6-7 years, we have seen that development, that you heard the community and you added adult to other brands at Target. So love seeing that growth and real attention to the feedback.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Dawn, and I don't know if Dawn necessarily gave herself enough credit, but she is really the queen of retail, and someone that is so highly respected in the industry. But Dawn, you were also, again, on the journey with us, really from the beginning, from our pioneering relationship with Tommy Hilfiger. Can you tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, why and how did Tommy as a brand grow from learning and listening to people with disabilities.
It's so interesting to hear you two talk. After we began with Tommy, the biggest thing that we learned was we had to listen. So we thought we knew what they needed. What we learned, which seems very easy now, and hearing you guys talk, boy, we were slow, is we brought everybody in. We brought Adaptive in to tell us, and specifically Mindy and Gary Scheinbaum, who's also on our board, who was running Tommy at the time, what did they need? What did they want? And we were still a little surprised. And I think you heard Heather talk about the things she learned. Some of the things we learned were really interesting. And you guys just underscored it again, which is interesting for me. They wanted to be like everybody else. The biggest thing we learned is they wanted to be like everybody else. So they wanted what was hot, what was new. They wanted to look like they were ready for fall, which we're about to have. What was new and what did they want? We began, and I remember this from the very beginning, thinking, oh, we've got to make it very different. What we learned from the team was that they wanted to be like everybody else, and how do we adapt that to work? So that seems very elementary now, but at the very beginning of this, we didn't understand quite what we needed. What we took from that then was, which is interesting what this panel is kind of all about, and as a retailer, once you identify what you need, the big problem now is getting the whole company to get behind it to deliver what you need. So as a CEO for a long time, I may have a great vision, but the point is in how do you make it happen? And this hadn't really happened before. This was the first.
You were the first.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to get Tommy Hilfiger as a group and PVH behind it to say this is important. And if we had Heather then, she would have been really helpful. But I tell you, Gary and Mindy did a fantastic job of this as a board member watching this and hearing it all, that they got very people excited about it. And it continued, and it evolved, and it changed, and they stuck with it. And Gary and Mindy led this charge and got Tommy Hilfiger and PVH excited about it to be able and to enable the company to do this. Because so much going on in retail today and every day, it doesn't change. That to make this a priority, which is very different with time and money and effort, big deal, and making it happen.
Agree, and it was a journey that we got to lead and be on. I'm gonna stick with you, John, because you just led into something really important, and that's from a company perspective. And I'm gonna ask all of you the same question. What did you see from anything internally from your the people that worked at Tommy about when Adaptive came about? Did you hear anything from customer service or anything internal that made the impact even bigger from an internal perspective?
Well, as I said, Tommy was the first, so getting people excited, Tommy, was, a challenge. They did a terrific job and stayed with it. The thing I remembered really well is that when they launched, I think it was on that day or that week, they had the most customer service calls ever in the history of Tommy, thanking them. Very interesting, a real underscoring that they had won. So that alone began to then process across the business, wow, this is really important. I just remember hearing all this and I was like, wow, because I was running a different company at the time. And it was amazing. So they had unbelievable success from a PR point of view, but mostly from the customer point of view, that these customers so appreciated it. It was the #1 customer service most ever in the history of the company on the day or week that you launched.
Exactly.
Day or week, I don't know.
Exactly, just saying thank you.
Just saying thank you. I remember it so well. I was stunned. It was so incredible. And I really think that helped Mindy launch with other brands. Because there's a true significant that the consumer wanted it. The consumer wants it, and as a retailer, you want to help adapt it, you also want to drive your business. And so it worked.
Absolutely.
So I just remember that so clearly, that this was a win. And it empowered the people leading it to Tommy to go further and continue.
Absolutely, and today it is a thriving part of their portfolio, Tommy Adaptive. I encourage everyone to go check it out, and they've really grown and made it something that's equally as important as the other parts of their portfolio. So really, really excited about that. Ron, maybe Lita, talk us through a little bit, especially from, community focused. What did you hear, what did you glean from the team about what true inclusion meant to Target?
So I could tell you, similar to what you just shared, I didn't get the number to quantify how many calls we received after we started rolling out more adaptive clothing, not only for adults, but even during our seasonal wears. So for example, Halloween.
Your adaptive costumes.
Having costumes adaptive, right? Like I remember very vividly at that point in time, not only receiving a bunch of written guest comments, but also having people stop my team within the stores, right? And share so much so that it ended up being a real topic on our phone call, right? How do we send this up? Because the excitement continues to be able to go through not only just carrying it during certain times of the year, only individual products, one-offs. It's like, how is this really a part of our entire portfolio, where we look at it from kids, adults, but even the seasonal times like Halloween, to be able to make sure we're bringing it to life so that way everyone can feel seen and welcome. The other part that I'll tell you about this, Mindy, and it's similar to what you shared here, is that it was so much excitement. We was like, this is a significant part of business, right? And so how do we not only make sure that we're listening to the community, responding and taking care of the community, but it's also good for business as well. And so this isn't, like I said, just a one-off case or a check in the box for the compliance. It's a part of the inclusivity. It's a part of belonging. It's a part of making sure that we're listening, learning, but then also showing up in the most impactful and relevant ways to let our communities know that it's more than just us hearing, but also responding and caring.
Absolutely, and similar to, again, what Heather shared, this isn't charity, this is a business opportunity. This is white space that we are in a really exciting time in the industry to have space that really, really is proven. I mean, let me just, I'm gonna go, again, a little off script. 1.3 billion people identify as having a disability on our planet. An estimated $13 trillion is being left on the table by not including people with disabilities, and it's the largest minority in the world, and the only minority that every single one of us could be a part of at any point in our life. Why aren't we? Why haven't we? When we hear those kind of statistics. Christy, please.
One more thing.
Yeah.
And back to also something Heather said, like, this is also fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even just the making sure we have the products so you see it, like everyone can see themselves. But back to the signing you see when you walk in the stores. Back to the ads when you open up the papers. Back to the commercials in which we have. I think, once again, having representation for all is just not only important, it's the right thing, it's the business decision, it just means so much. So I just wanted to double down again there.
I love a double down.
That turns to a lot of fun and a lot of excitement because it makes you feel good.
Yes.
No matter what as well.
That's a perfect tee up to Christy, because I can tell you firsthand, the team at Victoria's Secret has a lot of fun. A lot of spirit, and we could fill the whole back of house at our show with just volunteers from Victoria's Secret. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think we have a ton of pride from the get-go and excitement around our adaptive product. And I think a little bit to build on what you said, our associates are our customers. So yes, they have pride that we're doing it, but more so they're like, thank you. I remember very shortly after we launched our adaptive product, my assistant, who has arthritis and so dexterity issues with her hands, comes running up to me in the office, which always happens if you work at Victoria's Secret. People always show you their bra strap. And the people in our stores actually know. They can look at a bra strap and say, it's this bra. I don't, but she pulls it out and she's like, oh my gosh, I wore our adaptive bra for the first time and it was so easy to get on today. It's like life-changing. And so the passion comes from giving people what they want, and those people include our associates, so they're very excited about it. But Mindy, we've been involved with your Runway of Dreams show for a long time, both participating, buying tables, and also having volunteers. And we're to the point where we do have to turn people away because everybody can't come. Because we can fill the whole front and back of house with our associates because there's so much passion around it. We have an associate resource group for the disability community, and it's enormous. It's a huge resource group because, to your point, everyone is part of the community, know someone in the community, and we all benefit from all of the things that happen for the community. So, you know, for us, as soon as we said we were starting to doing adaptive, there was just go, how can we do, how can we support, how can we get involved, and it's just, you know, it's a point of pride, and there are a few things. You know, I lead community relations, and I wish every associate in our company could rattle off all the things we do in community relations, because it's a lot. There are only a couple that they actually remember and talk about regularly, and this is at the top of the list, so.
I love that. Well, we'd love to open it up for a few questions before we wrap up our panel. So, as I always like to say, this is a very safe space. This is where we hope you ask questions that maybe you weren't comfortable asking in other forums. This is the forum to ask it. So please don't be shy. Yes, I don't know if we can get microphones. Yeah, thank you.
We really liked the bra. We had one main critique, which was it was different than Tommy Hilfiger, in that Tommy Hilfiger made like outfits that were Tommy Hilfiger, just adaptive. And we wondered if Victoria's Secret had the idea of making a more sexy bra that was adaptive, a more Victoria's Secret bra.
Yes, and I will say we did start with a bra we started with because we wanted it to be something we hear a lot. I want a bra that you can't see under a t-shirt or whatever, so we did start with our very seamless, like, so that you could wear it under anything. But yes, there's also lots of opportunity. The other thing I will say, there's a lot of opportunity in the product we make to make small adjustments to make it more adaptive, so we absolutely recognize that. And we do have some bras that are in, just bras that we created that we recognize after doing this work well for the disability community. So yes, lots of opportunity in that space. Thank you, and I'm interested in hearing what else you did in that project, so let's connect.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Really good question. I teach at FIT, and the FIT students who helped at Victoria's Secret was a huge win. Heard from those students personally about how much it worked for them, but also I think it gave you guys great info. So we appreciate any of those questions and comments.
I know it's early, but don't be shy. Yes.
Hi, this question is for Dawn. My teammate and I are also from. This question is for Dawn. My teammate and I are also from FIT. We go to GFM, and we were just wondering, it would be great if there were classes on adaptive fashion. Do you think FIT will start making that push?
Interesting question. I met with FIT Thursday night with your president and the one who runs FBM. So we were talking about curriculum changes and what else needs to be added and changed and updated. So it was a really great question. I'll take that to them. I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Yeah.
I love that. And also just to highlight, last year we launched a program called Next Gen, and we launched it with FIT. That's what Dawn was referring to, that FIT students got to work directly with Victoria's Secret designers for adaptive, and they developed their own adaptive capsule that was then shown on our runway. And it was really extraordinary to hear not only from the designers at Victoria's Secret about the impact it had on them, but exactly to your point of the students saying, we want more. We really, really want to learn and have classes about adaptive. So that's one of the things that Runway Dreams and Gavin are really working on with our college club programs. Yes, I think we have a...
Thank you. So you've talked a lot with the adaptive products about taking existing products, existing designs, and altering them to make them fit the needs for people in the community with disabilities. But I also think there's so much potential to change basic assumptions about how we make clothing, how we make fashion products that may make them more accessible. And I think about like a men's suit coat severely limits range of motion at the shoulder joint, but if you insert, a knit panel in the underarm, suddenly, you can hold a subway, handle. What are companies doing to challenge these basic assumptions of how we put clothes together to make them more adaptive and more useful for all consumers.
I'll be quick and go first. Continuing to listen to people like yourself that has great ideas or continue to help us think about things that we may not have thought about yet, because I can tell you, even for me, sometimes my arms get a little in the suit coats, and so I just think that, you know, we talked about it like within the first question a little bit earlier, but continuing to listen, knowing that you never arrive, continuing to be able to be vulnerable and open, so that way you can be able to show up in different ways, listen, evolve, and then bring some of these great ideas that continue to happen to life. No different than being able to listen about what the young lady just shared about the bras, right? Like, there's gonna continue to be great ideas and new approaches, and that's what's gonna allow us to stay relevant and show up in the most meaningful ways.
I'll just add, as a CEO, we prioritize which categories we're gonna go after first, second, third, and fourth. And once you go after those categories, then we go back and listen and figure out what do we need to do in that category. Get that launch, go to category 2, 3, and 4, and then update category 1 again, to your point that we might have missed things. So it's kind of about prioritizing by category where we want to go, and by brand, because Mindy's done a great job by brand, and then making it important, trying to be best in category, because that drives value.
I would add to that, the other thing we need to do is listen to each other and work more together. You know, Victoria's Secret is never going to probably create bra and panty for everyone, but couldn't we lend our expertise in what we know to those who are doing it too? And so I think we don't have to solve everything, but how can we be part of the solution? And I think we need more of that. You know, we have, of course, decades and decades of expertise in lingerie business. We have the vendors, the suppliers. We, like I said, understand fit and quality, and how are we lending that expertise to others who are doing it too? So we're all working and lifting together. I think that's a huge opportunity.
And I'll just end it by saying that I think it's an evolution. I mean, when we look at how many products are in our mainstream world that actually started as products for people with disabilities, wheels on a suitcase, electric toothbrushes, texting. Who sent a text today? I'm just curious. Yeah. That was an alternate way to communicate for people that couldn't communicate in a typical way. And I do really believe that adaptive and universal products are eventually going to just be the norm, because our mainstream has realized that having a magnetic front bra with straps that actually can be manipulated forward is genius. And who wouldn't want to wear that? That's just how I feel. Yeah. Great question.
Can I just ask one question?
Of course.
It's just being a manufacturer myself, I have a number of businesses, so I look at it from all perspectives. When you were mentioning, can you do this design, that design, but it has to also be commercially viable for it to be justified. And I think one of the weak areas of why it hasn't accelerated as much as it should is awareness. So for example, until I was introduced to Mindy, I shop in Victoria's Secrets all the time. I have 22 different bras. I have no idea. Nobody in the UK has any idea. We're online. We can order from you wherever you're manufacturing. So I think to really have a think about your marketing budget and targeting it and creating some brilliant campaigns of inclusivity and it being the next cool thing for people to wear will make it a massively commercial viable business. And people with disabilities are very loyal. When they find something that's a great brand, we stick with it and we go back and back and back, more than people that are just living in a superficial world of blah, blah, blah. So I just think you can spend the whole time looking at different ways, but when you've got your capsule to start with, let everyone know about it, because there's not enough awareness. That's what I want to say. Thanks.
Completely agree.
Received.
Product design, when we talk about retail, but in between, when you're reaching to customers, do you feel there's challenges in this adaptive area? Because it might be a little bit different from mainstream, and I'd like to hear your insight. Thank you.
I would say I don't know I think the challenge is budget and marketing and carving out the money. I think, there's, of course, targeted marketing we can do, but we need everybody to be aware and figuring out how to do that and do it well. So yeah, I think that's the issue.
I teach the capstone at FIT and FBM, so I know this question really well. It's really about testing, so you can test the market, you find out what's going to work in this group, because it's going to be different, perhaps not, but testing is a way to go, and all the capstone projects we've done, it's really about testing something new, and that's what the brands are looking for in your capstone. It's about testing something new.
Thank you.
I think we can take about one more question. Joel?
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, Joel.
I have a lot of respect for all the work you guys have all done in this space, and I was wondering if, today's about learning, and I'm newer in this space, so excited to hear a lot today, but I was wondering if you could give me an example of a product that you brought to market that wasn't right and didn't work along your journey. If you could share that experience, I would appreciate it.
I can share one about Victoria's Secret, if that's okay. Okay. Before Victoria's Secret brought Gamut into the mix, they had already started developing product. And the first thing that we did, similar to the work that you're going to hear from Joel, is we did some focus groups on the product. And the team learned very quickly that what they developed was not right. They used closures that were not easy to utilize for people with disabilities, all different types of disabilities. And that's something that I hope we really get across today as well, that it's important to hear from all voices, as many as we can, that have different types of disabilities. I mentioned that my son has muscular dystrophy. There's over 100 different versions of muscular dystrophy that affect the body very differently. So the more voices we can hear, the better. But what is really important about the learnings from that is not, Victoria didn't say, well, we already put so much money behind this and we already developed it, we're gonna give it a go and, learn from that. They said, you know what? We're not sure what we're doing then, because then we need to start all over again. So I think that experience really showed firsthand how important it is to bring in the consumer with the disabilities from the beginning and learn and listen and grow and then develop. And I think that's a good example.
That's right, and I'll say that's what happens when you let passion get ahead of you. So we had designers who came to the Runway of Dreams runway show, and they were so passionate after that. We must develop adaptive product. We need to do this, that they just started running. Okay. We needed to pause, and we didn't. And so thankfully, then we did. But yes, they got a little too excited and thought, okay, we need to make it easier to get on and off, and we know how to do that. We didn't. And so, yes, thank you, Mindy and team, for giving us the insight. Then we could go back and make the product right.
Anybody else have one? I have one more, sorry. And I can share from other brands that also from a marketing perspective, also marketed in not an authentic way. So they had an amazing product, but then they put it on talent that didn't have disabilities or had a disability that authentically they actually in the real world would never have worn that product because it opened in the back and they had limb difference. And so the consumer sees right through that very quickly. That amazing that you did a great product, but if you're not going the distance by listening to us and learning and showing it appropriately and authentically, that can be the demise of a great product. Okay.